Hello, we should be live. Today we're working on our April calendar page. This is the line art that I did for it. It is April showers. We're going to have a background scene that's got clouds. This mark here is for where I want my lighter cloud to be. But this is all going to be moody and cloudy and look like it's raining off in the distance. We're going to see some of that reflection in our puddle here that our little girl is jumping and splashing in. So we need to dive right into it today. If you are on Patreon, if you're a Patreon member, including free members, or a channel member here on YouTube, I have shared this line art with you. There's a link in the description below for how you can get it. So I hope that you guys will paint along with me on this one. To start with, I have my line art transferred and I have my little girl masked off. Now, I think I'm going to remove this page because knowing that my masking could lift some of this graphite, I went ahead and I drew her out again because I wanted some of the shadows for that raincoat and where I was going to place them. So I went ahead and drew her out again, exactly the size she is here, so that I will be able to kind of line that up and then put some transfer underneath and put my lines back on as we're painting if I need it. So that's just a little tip. I'm going to go ahead and take this piece off. So again, that was my original line art. This came from a few different reference photos. Hello, let me quick just say hello to everybody who is here watching with me live. Hi, Rob. It's good to have you back. Wildflower, Boo Peep, George Pencil Art, of course, the art of Joseph Fincham, one of our moderators here on the channel, and I said Wildflower, just making sure I've got everybody. Okay. Hopefully we'll have some more people join in, but we're going to have fun either way. I'm going to just shut this. I have a light over here that is just, that almost looks too dark. I don't know why. I think it's a really cloudy day out. So I'm just going to try to bounce a little bit more light off. Bounce some more light off the wall, brighten that up. Okay. So I might need my pencil again. Now I used my PBO drawing gum to go ahead and mask out my girl here. And it's looking a little bit more green on my monitor than it is on my paper. I just finished this literally just before the stream started. So down here is still a little tacky. I need to let that dry. But we can go ahead and get started. Yeah, it's plenty dry enough up top. We'll be able to go ahead and get started in our sky and work our way down. Now, when we do paint our sky, I'm going to wet the puddle. And I'm going to do some of the reflections from our sky. So as I'm painting in the sky, I'm going to paint in some of those colors in our puddle. Hi, Karen. All right, I have my Meeden mixing palette again, same as last time. And if you guys that are watching live, if you want to see the palette, let me know and I can zoom out, or I can stay zoomed in tight and just tell you what colors I'm using as I use them. I'm going to be using my Core and Daniel Smith watercolors again. Same as last time. So for March's calendar page, those are the same ones I used. Okay. So yeah, let me know if you would like me to zoom out so you can see the palette, or do you just want to see the painting up close? All right. We are going to go ahead and dive right in and get started. I have my Princeton Velvet Touch brushes again. Oh, let me share with you the references. So I like to use the Magic Media on Canva, which is AI, where I can tell it, like when I have ideas of things I want to paint, I will, excuse me, I will plug that into the AI and ask it to generate me some images. And then from that, I take it as inspiration. Now, when I created this one, I loved the sky. So if you notice our sky here, this is where we're going to have a light cloud. This is where that lighter cloud is. So we're kind of taking, playing off of this. Is it going to be exact? No, because I'm going to paint it wet and wet. So it's going to be whatever it is. However, I am going to stick to that darker, looking like it's raining over here, to my sky, and then getting darker up this way. Bringing those clouds, kind of leading the eye towards our little girl jumping. And I didn't like the raincoat with the hood. I kind of liked the little rain hat. And you'll see that. Oh, and this is the puddle. This is the puddle that I liked with the splashes and the reflections that it created. So I went ahead and did some of that. But I used a different little girl. When I generated a different image, I wanted more hills and trees in my background. And I liked this little girl. But I didn't like her in the center of my scene. So I took inspiration from this. We see that in my rolling hills and such that are back here. And I liked how this had like the lighter patch back there, kind of really separating and giving us some more distance. So I went ahead and I used parts of this, but then I liked how my little girl or boy, you don't know in this picture here, the child is jumping and the right leg is up more because I liked these splashes. So what I did was I just took, this obviously is pink. It's supposed to be a little girl, but I just took this and I reversed it so that I had the right leg up. And so that's what we have here. So I drew all of these elements together. That gave us our line art. So I do have some of these sitting here as reference for me to look at in some of the painting because I liked how some of the colors were. So we're pulling inspiration from that. The other thing, yeah, I lost my train of thought. I don't know. The other thing, like this puddle, I didn't like this puddle. It was very brown and murky, which may be very realistic, but I really liked the sky reflections in the puddle. So that's what we're doing. That's how I'm doing mine anyways. It's your painting. You can paint yours however you would like. Again, there is a link in the description for how you can get the line art if you want to paint along. Okay, so I have my Velvet Touch brushes. I have a 10 round, a 4 long round, and a 3/4 wash. I don't know if I will need anything finer than that for any details. I can usually get pretty good details with that 4 round. It's one of my favorite brushes. All right, this is all plenty dry enough. To transfer, again, I've shared this before. I use a Derwent extra large graphite block, and I just put that on the back of my paper. Excuse me. All right. All right. Nobody's saying zoom out, so I think we're going to kind of just stay zoomed in on the painting and watch this one develop. I do have a little board. Now, this is like, if you ever get stuff in the mail and they have the hard cardboard corners to like support to make sure they can't crush the box, I always save those. This one I cut about halfway so that I could shorten the angle that my board was raised. But I do want to have it elevated because when I paint my sky wet into wet, I want my wash to be able to flow down my page. We're getting terrible shadows here. There, how's that? A little better. Hopefully. Okay, so my board is slightly elevated. That's about the height, if you're wondering. Okay. I'm going to lighten up, if I can find my kneaded eraser. I'm going to lighten up some of these marks. And this is one of the reasons why I use the graphite extra large block for doing my transfers. Because when I need to lighten something, this will lift those lines right off. Like I want this to be the lighter part of my cloud. I don't want to see those lines after the fact. So we're just going to lighten up some of these marks real quick. I can just kind of press it. I'm going to be careful where my masking is. I don't want to lift any of that off yet. There we go. Oh, I didn't mask her little hand. We definitely need to get that done. I like to use silicone tools to apply my masking. Mostly because I don't keep like a liquid soap up here that I would use to treat a paintbrush before dipping into my masking to protect my paintbrush. And I don't have a lot of disposables that I wouldn't care about. So yeah, I just use a silicone tool. There are all kinds you can get. I've got some of these as well. They have the tips and the dotting tools. So all kinds of stuff. Hello, Virginia. Oh, Virginia, I sent you a message again on Discord. So if you can check that out for me, I'm just trying to make sure that you have everything that you, I just pulled it up. I'll do it one more time. Everything that you can get on the Discord server unlocked. As I don't think it is right now. I want to make sure that gets fixed. Pulling that out for her hand. I got a little too close and it was not dry enough, so my kneaded eraser pulled it right off. Okay. If you are a patron or channel member, I definitely recommend getting connected to our Discord server. It's so much fun over there, and we have lots of fun conversation and art that's shared, and depending on what tier or level you are at, will you get more and more channels on the server unlocked as the different tiers go. All right, I think that's fine. I think those lines are light enough that I won't see them when I'm done painting. I might have lightened my tree a little bit too much, but that doesn't matter because, again, when I do the tree, it's going to be very loose. Okay. There. Virginia says, I love this idea for April. I was just thinking, I already have my May picked out, and it's very much like May flowers. So I thought April showers bring May flowers. Originally, I was thinking like maybe doing something that had like silhouette of a rabbit in it because Easter's in April. But then I was really like, this is kind of different. It's landscape like we've been doing, but it's bringing in some life into our painting, and I like that. Not that flowers aren't life. Okay. Let's get our paper wet. Right now, I'm just going to wet my sky area. Again, my board is slightly elevated, and your paint is only going to go where you've wet your page. So a little bit showing under her arm there. I need to make sure I remember that as I'm painting along. All right, now when I get to where this tree is, I'm going to take my round and we're just going to kind of, that's it. Just, I don't have to follow the lines perfectly. Your reference photo is, or the line art is a guide, right? It's just a guide. There we go. Okay. Now, for our sky, I'm going to work with, I think for some of my darkest darks, I'm going to use Daniel Smith's Soda Light. You could use like a lunar blue. That would be like a PBK 11, and which is Mars black or lunar black, and a PB15:3. It's phthalo blue. The two of them mixed together. That's lunar black, and it looks very similar. There, you can see it right there on the edge of the screen. That is Sodalite Genuine. Let me just slide this over. You might be able to see a little bit of my palette if I do it that way. But I just think Sodalite makes the most beautiful moody skies. I'm also going to bring in some PB36, which is like cerulean blue. It's a cerulean blue chromium if you're using core. That's this color. And I'm going to let those two colors kind of mix. And where they mix, this is going to be like, as I transition from this side, we're going to go quite dark as we go over to just our right side with the Sodalite. Okay. I probably should have mixed them up before I wet my page, but you know, it's fine. Okay. So let's see if I can see any. Yeah, the sheen is pretty much gone. We're going to go ahead and wet this again. I want this. The paper's not dry, but there's no, see the shine? See how there's none over here? It got too dry. I don't want it that dry. I want it wet because I really want these colors to move. Again, when I get to where my tree is, I'm just going to kind of just wiggle my brush around that area where I want my tree painted. I'm going to take that right to that distant hill. Okay. So let's start with the dark side. And we are just going to drop in our color nice and dark. So my board is tipped. See how this is going to flow down? And that is going to help give us the look like it's raining. Right? As this kind of pulls down here, I'm just going to drop more in and let it flow. Now there's a lot of water on my paper. This is going to lighten up. We're going to have to come in and darken that. So, hi, Tara. All right, adding some more. Let it be darker up here. Now let's start to pull this over. Now I'm going to come into that mixture of like the cerulean, and I don't have to worry about my girl. I can paint right over her. Come up here into just the cerulean, and we're going to let them kind of mix on the paper. Remember, down here's where I wanted that sort of lighter cloud to be down in this area. It's lighter, it's not white. Virginia, it should be my very last post on, the message on Discord. No, for the line art. Oh, it's in your messages. It's in your direct messages. It's not going to be on the Discord server. It'll be on your direct messages. Sorry, it just took me a minute to catch up. All right, I'm just moving a little bit of this blue over, letting this mix and mingle. This is going to help make some of the shadow part in my cloud. Again, I don't want it to be, pure white. We're going to want some of that color to come in here. I'm liking what I'm getting here as far as coming down. I need this to be darker. I might even grab some neutral tint. I'm not going to worry if some of this works in with to where my tree is. All right, I'm going to grab some of the Daniel Smith's neutral tint. That's this guy. Let's get some darker. darker darks going on over here because it's raining. The other thing that I needed to do while I'm working with these colors is I want to wet my puddle. And same thing, I'm going to drop in my dark, mixing up that neutral tint and some of that sodalite. I want my dark down here, this part. We have lots of water on our page. Now I'm going to grab up here where we have the mixture of the sodalite and the cerulean. Let's get some of that color coming in here. Right, and this, it gets lighter. So we are going to clean our brush, tap it off, and I'm just going to take a tiny bit. This is going to be very light, but it is going to give us a little bit of blue color. This is going to flow down. That's fine. We're going to need it to be darker here. Of course, I have my bleed-proof white if I need to lighten anything. So you see we have some of these like highlights and some much darker colors. We're going to do those details near the end. I definitely want to bring some more of my cerulean into this. Pull it through this way. There we go. There's a lot of water here. I'm just going to tip it up and let that flow for a minute. It's moving slowly, but it is moving. It's going to end up looking like more clouds. I just want this all to look cloudy, rainy. This here that's coming down, I'm going to grab a dry brush. I have a fan brush here. I could have used like a hockey brush or whatever. I'm just going to pull some of this down. I want it to look like that rain is falling. There we go. Now we're going to come back in a little bit more of that neutral tint, a little bit more of this sodalite, kind of blending those. And I'm not going to be afraid to darken this up a little bit more. This is my rain cloud. I don't mind if some of this flows down into where I just pulled. One more time. This is a dry brush. I'm just pulling some of that color down. I'm not worrying about where it touches into the hill here. Don't be afraid to put that color in there. Yes, this is going to dry lighter, right? So we don't want to be afraid to get those values in. Let's see, I'm just going to grab a clean tissue, and I'm just going to take a damp brush. So this is clean water. I'm pulling most of that water off my brush. I'm just going to come through here, right where the hill kind of meets the sky. I'm just going to lift. Oh, I touched it. I didn't want to touch this part. I just wanted to touch there and lift that up. I'm not worried about it. Pushing a bloom because I had more water. The top was already getting a little too dry. And don't worry about making it too dark. It's still going to dry later. It's fine. I liked it before, but it is what it is. It's fine. Again, let's tip her. Bring some more up here. We can get lost. I think we can get lost in our skies. I want to move this right along. Thanks. Putting more of that cerulean in the sky. We can really see it reflected here, so I want to make sure that it's also showing up here. Drying off my brush so I can just come in and soften this edge where it's going to meet that lighter cloud. And then I can come back. That's a little dark. I'm not going to be afraid. Just clean off my brush. Again, I'm wiping it off on a sponge, and I can just come back and kind of soften up the edges. And then we just take our tissue, right? And we can just lift. I'm even going to come up into this space. It's probably a little too dry. Yeah, it's a little too dry already. That's fine. That's definitely fine. All right, we're just going to let that be. That is our background. I know I said let it be, and then I started messing with this cloud again, but I just wasn't quite liking the shape that it had right there. There you go. We can let it be. We can always come back. But this is like, here comes that storm. Like, or maybe the storm's going, and that's why she's outside playing now, because it's not raining over here where she's at. But this is way too light. We need to come back in, and we're going to wet our area. And yet again, I'm going for the neutral tint and the soda light. And we're going to kind of darken this part up. Again, this will dry later. I'm going to put some full strength here right into this bottom part. Just because I really want it kind of reflecting this part of the sky. And over here. This is still damp enough that that will move, and it will get lighter. Okay. I need just to kind of soften my edge here as we transition. There we go. Okay. We're going to end up adding more darks. Now I need to put in some darks right here. I'm going to take that same because underneath where her feet are, this part of our water is going to be much darker. So while I have it here, I might as well put some of this in. Just kind of going to let my sky dry and work on the flower for a little bit. Yeah, that's slaying, right? The other terror for like being soaked in the rain. Just kind of pulling it out. I'm making the splash. I can see my line, so I know where I'm going to need some of these to lift. All right, I want this to get just a little bit lighter. Make sure I don't have too much water on my brush. And I'm going to do some of our little lines. Now, some of these are going to be dark. Some are going to be light. Again, I have my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White if I need that. Here, it's still pretty damp, so this is going to diffuse a little bit. I can always come back through adding that darker after. We're doing our ripples. I'm pulling them right through where the reflections of her boots are going to be, because we're going to paint those on in a minute. Yeah, drenched. That's what I was thinking you were saying. I might have veered off from my original lines. That's fine. All right, now we're starting to look like it's water. This needs to dry more. We're going to add more thereafter. I can start getting some of her foot in here. Actually, for that, I'm going to switch up and grab my 4 long round. I'm going to need to leave a space here, I don't know. Yeah, we're going to see it probably right about here where that in between is. Where I'm going to put red on her rain boot. So we'll see a little reflection of red there. So I'm going to leave that. And we're going to paint. It goes this way, so it's going to go this way. Now her boot is actually, it's actually going to be blue. Let me switch this up for a minute. I'm going to take a little bit of this out because I want to paint that reflection in the blue. So I'm going to use, I'm looking to see if I have like a, for Daniel Smith, I have a PB27. I might use that. If you have like a PB60 or a PB27, like an indanthrone blue, something like that, I think that will be fine. I don't want to use, I know I've already used Sodalite. If this blue is too, let's look at what the blue looks like. Okay, so that's a little too, not quite what's going on in the rest of the painting. I don't want them to stand out and feel like they don't really belong. You could, it doesn't matter if you want them that way, but I'm going to put a little bit of neutral tint in this. And I like that much better. It just feels a little bit more cohesive with everything else that's going on. So for me, it is PB27 and a little bit of neutral tint. Again, you could use a PB60, like an indanthrone blue. Or if you used lunar blue in your sky, then you could use you could use lunar blue for her boots. It'd be PB 15 and PBK 11. So I'm going to paint this blue. Again, I'm going to leave that little space so I can do, and it looks very similar, right? It looks very similar to what I already had here, but it is different. It will show up as different. And then here, I've got like, this is going to be like the toe. So that certainly could be that same really dark color we've already used, but I'm just going to go ahead and do this the same. I'll add a little bit of neutral tint on top of it because that is the underside of her boot. I'm just going to put neutral tint on top of that, and that's fine. Okay, so where her heel is, that's here. I'm going to put the neutral tint there as well. So her heel kind of comes around this way. And there's going to be red. There's going to be a stripe of red. And afterwards, we're going to use some Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. And we're going to put white polka dots on her boots. So we'll have white polka dots showing up down here too in the reflection on this one. Okay. Now, I'm going to leave this for a bit. We're going to come back to this. We're going to work on our water as we kind of go. But for right now, I just want to, actually, let's take a little bit of this mixture. And let's just put some fine ripples in our water. I'm using colors that are in my sky, so everything is going to look cohesive here. You're hearing my finger. I'm rubbing my finger along the space to keep my brush elevated. A little ASMR going on there, sorry. Or maybe you guys like it. I don't know. I just want to add a little bit more texture, movement in our water. I'm going to bring a little bit of this lighter right into here. Be careful, that boot's still wet, so I don't want to bring too much too close to that. So this is very thinned down, what you're seeing me mix over here. Very light. So we're just glazing. We're just glazing some. My brush is being held very flat to my paper, so it can just kind of skip around. Building up the layers so that I get something that looks more like we're seeing a reflection in water. All right, water's going to be very shiny. There's not a lot of water in my brush. There's not a lot of, even though this is very thin down, there's not a lot of water in my paint right now. So when I add this, I don't have to worry about like creating a bloom or pushing any like weird effects in my water here. When I reach up to my water, I'm just barely touching the tip of this brush into that water, and I'm pulling in more of that cerulean, pulling up a little bit of the darker value, right? Because we're coming over here to where it's darker. We're going to bring some more darks. Hi, Cadmium Red Feral Kitten. Yeah, my Thursday, I'm leaving that little space because remember, I want to paint red in there. My Thursdays get really, really busy. I'm working a little bit of this dark down because my girl is also going to be casting some shadow in this water. My Thursdays get really busy, so sometimes I can't get the stream scheduled because I'm here at the house, but I just don't have the ability to spend the time in the studio space. That's where I need to schedule the stream. So sometimes I don't get to schedule it till later. There we go. Okay, I'm going to leave my water alone for now. We're going to leave that be. I'm liking what I'm seeing here. I need some white highlights for sure. And I want actually just a little bit more. Again, this is my Soda Light and Neutral Tint. You could do Neutral Tint and Lunar Black if that's what you have. If you don't have Soda Light. Soda Light's one of my favorite blues. I love that color. I just want to bring some darker marks around here. Again, we can create not liking those ripples. It's like I changed the angle they were supposed to go at. Sorry, we're gonna kind of blend it out. We'll let it dry. We'll do it again. It's okay. We can do that. All right. Letting it be for now. Let's move on. Now that this is, yeah, it's dry. It's not, my paint is not going to flow up into my sky up there. I'm going to keep my board tilted so that even my mountain colors can move down. So now we're going to work with some greens. I want some nice cool green. This is where I'm going to like this one that I looked at. And I'll just leave that there for a minute if you want to be able to pause and get a look at those hills. This is the inspiration for this part of our painting. Again, this is the girl we're using, but I didn't like her centered in the piece. I wanted her on that kind of rule of thirds. Okay, so there we go. We're going to just kind of go with that. So I'm going to work. This is a very much like a really blue green through here. So for our very distant one, we're going to paint that one first. So let's see. I wish I had like a perline green. I don't have perline green on either one of these palettes. I'm going to use, I have Zoisite. It is not perline green. I'm going to mix it up here where my blues were because I want some blues in here. So Zoisite Genuine is a greenish color, but see, it's very muted to start with. So I think if you had like a perline green, you could mix some blue in with it. I don't want it too dark. These are a ways away. I mean, it looks dark in the reference, but remember, it's a reference. I'm not using it. I'm not going to be a slave to my reference photo. This was an inspiration for this. Grabbing a little neutral tint. That was a lot of neutral tint. Get some of that off my brush. Zoisite, and I'm pulling some of this blue. Just need to darken that up. Okay, that's fine. So I'm going to paint in. I'm painting wet on dry right now. Actually, I think I am going to wet this hill. So I'm only going to wet this hill. It is this one back here. This is not the brush I would normally do this with, but it's fine. Don't worry if you get a little bit outside the line. I'm going to put a little tiny dab right there under her arm, between her arm and her body. And this one is going to come all the way over under my sky and meet up to where that tree is. All right, let's drop this color in. I'm just dropping it along the bottom. It's going to spread to the top. Even when my board tilted, it's going to travel upwards some. There we go. So now that most of that is out of my brush, I'm just going to come back through and paint the line of my hill. Right? Still tipped. Okay. I need to let my distant hill dry before I was just reading the comments. I'm going to let my distant hill dry before I come in and work on the next one that's closer. But while that's happening, I can certainly, dropping in a little bit more color at the bottom. Again, it's going to come up. Now, this tree is here in my painting. So you see here's that distant hill. Then if we look, we're going to have another hill in front of that. And then we have this like grassy field area. We have some more trees here. Then we have this line of trees here. This is like almost closest to us. These are the closest ones to us. This is going to have a lot more warmer green to it, even though it's going to come up into this space. We're not going to worry about this being wet and that color kind of coming into that. We don't want to worry about that. Wildflower said, if it looked any stormier, I'd be worried she was going to be struck by lightning. I'm liking how the sky is developing. I might want to do a little bit more up here after, but as of right now, we're just going to leave it as it is. because we need to get this background painted kind of as quickly as we can. Okay, for our tree, I've got my core sap green. I'm going to mix right over here. This was left over nickel azo yellow and sap green from the last time I painted on this palette. So I know that that's what it is. I'm going to go ahead and put my sap green here. If I mix in with some of that yellow, it's fine. And we're going to start, right? This is a very wet wash. Nice olive green with a lot of that yellow undertone. I'm going to start, and I'm just going to very quickly, okay, very quickly, we're just going to come over the shape we kind of left, and we're going to block in this tree. This is our lightest value, right? This goes, there's another tree that is in front of this one. This is going to have to be much darker, but we're going to paint it kind of wet and wet. And to start with, instead of wetting it with water, we're just wetting it with this lightest value. And we're just going to drop all of that right in there. Now that tree there is nice and wet. As far as the other trees go that are in that kind of row, I'm not worried about it. These are a lot darker in this one, and I think I'm going to keep them that way. So whatever comes next, I'll use for those. And I will be able to kind of paint those in at the same time. So we're going to kind of move around on our landscape. Not something I normally do, but I think it'll work for this painting. And in the interest of time, we definitely need to keep going. Okay, so I have my sap green again. Let's get some more sap green up here. I want this to be much stronger now, right? I want that green. All right, this is going to be our next. We're just going to tap some spots in here. See how I'm leaving some areas. This is still very much wet and wet. And this area here is going to be the darkest. So we can just paint that section in, the whole thing. Just grabbed sap green, undiluted, right out of my palette. And I'm going to drop that in. Drop some more in here and there. We're just tapping it in. You're going to get some different, because this is wet and wet, you are going to get textures. You're going to get different values. We're just going to let it do its thing. All right. Get that there, and I'm going to stop messing with that one. Now, just dabbing my brush in my clean water, just to get it more wet, I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to wet this same line of trees. I'm going to go around where I kind of put in, negatively paint around like this little shrub. Well, it's probably a bush. Pop this in. We're going to go right up to our girl here with this color. Now this color, we have to make sure, don't forget, this is the row that we see, right? We're seeing some of that in the distance. So make sure you get right there between where her legs are. I need to like really keep this going quickly. Kind of making my water dirty with that. I'm going to go right up to that one behind it. Right up to this one here. Oh, I painted over my little tree in the front. I'm just gonna kind of lift some of that out, and that's fine. There's my one in the front. It'll be fine. Again, this kind of goes around. There's one here too. There we go. Just making sure all of this gets wet or stays wet. That's why I'm coming back over it. I need to drop in some darker values. So, grabbing my sap green right from the palette. And just dabbing it in. Don't forget there. I went back to my palette for some stronger. We're going to have other bushes in front of this. And there's that one that I kind of went ahead and painted over. My brush has been rinsed. I'm just wiping it off on the tissue here because I just want to kind of transition this to the edge. There we go. Pulled a little bit too much right there. I want a nice, we're going to paint her coat red. The reason I decided to go with the red is because red and green are complements. So it's really going to make that coat pop. I am going to try to get this all painted in one go. Hopefully that would be possible. I'm just dropping in some darker values here near the bottom. I just want some different textures, different values in there. I meant values, not textures, but having the variety of values is going to give us some more texture in that. Okay. And let's just kind of let that be and see how that starts to dry. We're going to go back to this one up here. I touched my painting. Actually, we need a little bit more darks in this guy before we move on. So taking this green, again, I've already used neutral tint in so many places. Let's grab it here. There we go. So mixing it with the sap green, adding more neutral tint to it. I just want to, I really want to darken up this corner. Remember, this is our darkest part of our sky. And if that big old storm cloud is pulling through this way, we're going to have some shadows through here. We're going to put some more. Right now, what I am doing is I'm actually looking up. Looking up at my monitor. I tell you guys all the time, if you just turn on the camera on your phone and hold it over your painting, so you're looking at your phone, looking at your painting, you will see it so much differently. And sometimes that really helps me get in some of the different tonal values Okay. I don't know if you guys can hear that banging. Slew downstairs. Okay. And a little bit more, our neutral tint, right? Because we're going to bring the same in here. I'm just going to put them, again, this is still damp. My paint brush is not really wet, and my paint doesn't have a lot of water. So it's not going to push a bloom up into my little trees or bushes or whatever these are in the distance. But I can definitely add more shadow into the background, right at the base of these trees. Because again, it is stormy. Put some over here as well. Let's see if we can't straighten that line out a little bit. There we go. Anywhere that I think my little line in between where the field is needs some straightening, we can adjust that right now with this color. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you wanted it perfectly straight, you'd put a piece of tape there. I'm not worried about it being perfectly straight. This is still kind of a hill leading off that way. All right, I am liking those. This here is, this is dark. I actually don't see these little ones showing up in my line art. That's fine. They probably were supposed to be, I don't even know. They don't exist. They don't exist anymore. I was talking about these little guys, and I'm fine with that. We're going to paint this, and we're going to paint it just like that. We're going to have it darker, and we're going to lighten it up as it comes down, and we're going to have this part of that field nice and light. That's going to make it look like that is a really big field back there. Again, this is still a cooler green, whereas this green warms up a lot into our foreground. But we're going to add a little bit more shadow into our grasses over here, because again, we're not painting the sky. The sky was not this sky was not the inspiration in our painting, right? This sky was the inspiration, and we're definitely going to add some more darker shadowing over here. All right, so I'm going to go to that distant mountain, and I'm going to wet this one because I want to work wet into wet, and I want it to be able to, I want the color to be able to kind of flow down when I place it. I'm being very careful not to go into where I want that light field to show up. And I'm painting around my other hill. I'm going to be careful. This part, remember, I didn't go all the way up there when I was adding these darker colors, but that might still be a little wet. So I'm going to be very careful about how much water I'm letting get near that part of my painting right now. Because I don't want it to, this to be, if this is still damp, it can push a bloom into that area. Because there would be too much water setting on top of it. Okay. I've got a little bit more pooling of water than I want. So I'm taking some of that off. I don't know if we can get that to show up there. There's a little bit of pooling here. So I'm just going to absorb a little bit, tapping it on my, I have a tissue in my hand right here. So I am letting a dry brush just lift a little bit of that at the bottom. So I don't have too much. Okay. Again, my painting is still, it's still elevated. All right, I want something that's going to be kind of in between my nice, cool, this zoisite that I had in the background and this green that's here that I used in my foreground. We're going to want to kind of get a mixture there because that's where it's transitioning. So I'm going to go ahead and re-wet this on my palette. Right, this was that zoisite. I'm going to start the same as what I put back there. I'm going to start by putting some of this in here at the top. Again, this is wet. It's going to flow down. And I'm going to, grabbing some more. This is that zoisite. You could use like a perline green. That would be fine. I'm going to take a little bit of this guy and I'm going to bring it in here. Look at that. Look how it just pushed that right away. Some more of that zoisite in there. Okay. So we're going to put this into the top. And it still translates as a distant color, but it's starting to warm up. Just touching that top part. Now I'm going to bring in more. This was greener, right? This was warmer. I'm going to bring this into the bottom. And the zoisite offers so much texture. If you want, because it's granulating. So if you wanted to create something that would be a green that granulates, you could actually take sodalite, very granulating color, and mix that in with some yellows to get your green, to kind of get to here. Because look at, can you see it? Let me bring it up even closer for you. Look at that granulation and that texture. It's going to be really nice. We've got the lighter value down here at the bottom. But because our painting is tipped, some of that dark color can still flow, and it's just going to add to the granulating effects we get at the top. Here, I'm just dropping in a little bit more of the, right? Our sky is darker over here. So I want a little bit more shadow as I work this way. So I'm dropping in a little bit more of that darker value. Up here near the top. Okay. Down here, that's where I wanted it nice and light, but I also want it to be, a nice light green, kind of a cool green. Mixing in some more water. I just took some of this, so some of the blues, some of the greens I've been working on already, and I'm just going to put it in very, very pale. Let's see how that looks. That part of the mountain may be able to flow into this space, but I think it's going to stay. Oh, you're welcome for the close-up view. Right? We want to see. There we go. We've lifted some of that. I'm just taking a dry brush and I am lifting out some of that color. All right. It is going to be, it's green. It looks green. It's not quite what I want. What I'm doing off camera, I'm taking a little bit of this green that I've mixed up, brought it up here with this blue that I had, and I'm adding a little bit of water because I want to see maybe that green, because it's still in the distance. I still want it to be cooler. I also want it to be a nice light value. Let me kind of put this down and let's try to lift a little bit off. Oh, I think my brush is too big. But I get to painting, and a lot of time I'll just keep going with the brush that I'm using. This is just a clean damp brush. right? I'm just going to lift a little bit of this out. It's because I want that to be lighter. I do not want this to flow up and push a bloom into my hill back there. Okay. I'm adding a little bit more of that hill color behind, just to kind of establish there's a difference. There's a difference between that hill and what's going on in this space. And of course, I can touch any of that up afterwards if I need to. She's our focal point. I'm trying to really hurry and get that done. So I'm going to paint these guys next. I'm going to come back and paint this after. So next is going to be these guys here, and we're going to paint our foreground grass pretty quickly. We're going to use this same type of mixture for our foreground. Let's see, what are we going to paint these guys? I am just going to, again, my board is still tipped. I can see that some of this is still a little damp. I'm just going to be careful. I'm going to wet these spaces. Okay, let's see. I want to keep it cohesive. In this here, like, it's not really. These really stand out weird. Like, I could bring some more nickel azo yellow in with this green mixture if I wanted them to be lighter, because I've already used that color in the mixture for some of these trees. So that's not going to look too out of place. If I had used like a burnt sienna when I did, like for some of the colors of my sky, I could have definitely brought a burnt sienna into those. Hi, Ian Jackson. But I didn't. So that's going to be adding another color. I'm trying to stick to a nice limited amount of colors here. And of course, we'll take some of this darker and we'll just drop some in here and there. Right? We just want to add shadows in this space. Certainly where it's going to meet that horizon line. There we go. It's fine. The sun's not out. We're not going to have too many, highlights, but I definitely want them to be a different color than the ones that are around, behind them. I want to bring them forward. There's a really darker value there, and we'll just place some in here and there. This is still damp, so this is going to move some. Right, we place it down here. I'm going to grab a little bit of this dark. Bring that in just a few spots. I just clean my brush, but I don't want there to be too much water in it, because that would just push a bloom right up into these guys. Now I don't mind putting dark right here, right? Because that's going to just bring this tree more forward. So that was extra neutral tint. I just took some of this green and grabbed it. And that's just going to make that darker value. There we go. I'm not liking the kind of halo effect that I have going on there. I'm going to take my 4 long round. Just kind of working it around that edge, just to blend it. I like that a lot better. Same with this one. I could actually see a couple little spots. I don't want white spots in my paper coming through. It's not a sunny day. See how we have that here? Just kind of taking a damp brush and just working around little circles. And how about this guy up here? It was standing out to me. Okay. That's fine. Good enough. All right. This guy's pretty dark. When I look at this, right, that's pretty dark. And I actually brought it along a little bit longer. Because again, I moved the girl. So in moving the girl, I changed some of that landscape. So we're going to take this same green that I've been working with, sap green. And this is Core sap green. It's one of my favorite sap greens. For those who don't have it, it's PB36 and PR101 and PY150. So PY150 is in the sap green, which is why I used extra nickel azo yellow PY150 when I was trying to mix some lighter values. And I'm going to take neutral tint. This was neutral tint. I'm going to bring that down here. Grab it a little bit more. Right? I want a nice dark value. And I'm just going to paint this guy in. He's dark. Right? It's going to be darker than that. Just kind of breaking that plane. Well, it's going to look like maybe there's some trees there. There we go. Now we have that field that is looking a little bit lighter, much lighter. Down here where I meet this, these colors are looking pretty similar to me. I'm going to grab some neutral tint. This has a bead at the bottom. I am going to grab my smaller brush. I'm just going to grab neutral tint. I really want to separate these. Then we'll put this darkest value at the bottom. Just going to kind of work that up. And just kind of softening the edge where I pulled it up. And there's a lot of paint kind of sitting here. Just lifting that. I may get some different tonal values there. It's fine. Okay. All right. We're going to get our foreground grasses painted, and then we're going to dry this, or we need this to get dry. We're going to remove our masking and start painting our girl. Okay. Through here, we're going to wet this. And I am going to be wetting around my puddle. My water's dirty. So it's got a green tint to it, and that's fine. So I'm using my dirty water as I'm wetting this puddle, or wetting the grass around the puddle rather. Just grabbing my flat brush so I can get the rest of this done quickly. Lots of water on that. That's all right. Okay. So let's just start grabbing some of this sap green color. There's plenty of water here. I'm going to start on the really wet side first. It'll kind of thin that out. We're just going to pull that across. This will be the lightest value for this field. I'm not going to worry if I get like different values through here. It's fine. Again, this is still very much wet and wet. We need to get some of the our sky, that blue, those blues. Right? So we had the cerulean and sodalite. Again, these are the cerulean blue was Daniel Smith. or excuse me, the cerulean blue was Core. The Sodalite was Daniel Smith. Right, so there we go. It's got some of the greens we've already used, and this is just going to be our cool shadows. Right, we're just going to pull some of this through. I'm going to get some contrast going here. So just wet into wet. Some of that other green can show through, and that's fine. Now we've definitely started adding some shadows. We'll take the same, and we're just going to put a few. Okay, just a few where it's still very much wet. Wet on wet. In the foreground, we're going to add grasses. We're actually going to see some grassy details. Those are coming. Grabbing some more, just pulling down into some of that where I had neutral tint. Okay, because we're going to just bring some more in here. It's our sap green. That neutral tint. Cool it down even more with the Sodalite. There we go. Not be afraid to get some darks in there. The Sodalite is going to give us granulation. We're going to get more texture. Just pulling a little bit of that back. Okay. I'm pulling out a little bit of that, and it is with a pretty much, my brush is pretty dry. I need to clean it off though. Wipe that off. And lift some of that out. There we go. I just brought my shadow over a little bit further than I wanted it. Our grass is going to need to dry before we can add, before we can paint actual blades of grass. So we need to let that dry for a bit. I'm just putting a little bit more. I know this is going to lighten up, and I want a little bit darker. Darker shadow. Our water's really dark here too, right? We want to not be afraid to drop some darks in. Not a lot of water in this. You saw it pushed the water away when I added the stronger pigment. There we go. I might take This is going to be more watered down. I think this is looking a bit light. So while everything is still, this has dried a bit, so I'm going to dampen this area. Over here, still very much wet. I just want to glaze in a little bit more. It's a bit light for this scene. There's a hair. Oh, there we go. Got it. What's a hair on my painting? Don't be afraid to have different spots that'll stay lighter than others. All right. Now we need to work on our girl. Okay. Now our water is actually starting to look quite reflective. My sky is pretty dry. I can get this part. I'm not going to want to pull color down here. Absolutely not. This is still very wet. I'm just going to remove the masking that's on the top. And one easy way, if you have any masking that's being stubborn, of course, be careful, because if you use your eraser, you may pull up, your masking may pull up some of it too, but you may pull up some of your lines. I was hoping I left my lines dark enough so that when I removed the masking, I would still be able to see them. But remember, I saved, I copied the, my girl. I made sure I did her on some tracing paper beforehand. So if my masking pulled up those lines, I would be able to come back and put them back on. Now you can use a rubber pickup to remove your masking. Looks like this. Or, you can just use your finger. I'm just using my finger because I know I'm going to be stopping at the base of her raincoat here. Because this is wet and I don't want to rub over that space. There's a little bit right there that's not coming up. There we go. Okay. And I'm just going to remove that. There's still masking on her legs. I will uncover that after, but we need to keep working so that we will be able to finish her today. Now, for her hat, if you're watching live, drop me a comment. Her raincoat is going to be red. Should her hat match? Red hat, red raincoat? Maybe. Her boots are going to be blue with white polka dots and red lines on them. So they're going to work with the jacket. Get that out of my way. Okay. See, like on this, the girl, which actually, remember, I flipped her. So I'm going to be using the shadows as shadows, but I'm not painting her coat pink. I want it red because red and green are complements, and I think that's going to make her stand out so much more. It's going to look nicer. I'm really thinking that I want to go with a red hat, red coat. Her little boots are going to be that really dark blue with the white polka dots, and see, they have red lines on them here. I'm going to keep that. I liked that look. So this is what we're doing. Hi, Betsy. Okay. So we're going to paint that red. I'm going to paint her hat red. What red am I going to use? Great question. I think, do we want to go with a warmer red or a cooler red? I'm leaning towards a cooler red just because those are kind of my preferences. Like if I was choosing clothes for myself, I'd probably choose a cooler red over a warmer red. Although I am wearing an orange today, or orange, an orange shirt. That's what I should say. I need to touch up while this is still, while I still have this color, I can see where some of the masking moved, and I need to touch that ground up right there. Okay. Rob says like a carmine. Yeah, I'm going to go with a PV19 because that's what I have here. So that mine is quinacridone rose. No. That's quinacridone. Pretty sure this one is quinacridone red. Quin rose, quin red. It's Daniel Smith. It's fine. So for starters, let me go ahead. I'm just going to flip this little thing around so that you'll be able to see some of my colors here. I'm going to need to mist this up. This has some bleed proof white on this side. I really need to clean this. I'm running out of water. I need to make sure I bring more. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I got a drop of water on my painting right here. We'll fix it. We'll fix it when we do the grass touch-ups. I'm not going to worry about that, but make sure I didn't get any more water on it. All right. Just cleaning off a spot so we can work with reds over here. There we go. Okay. Yeah, see? Just push that bloom right there. It's fine. We'll cover it up. Okay. So this PV19 is a quin red. Look at that. Beautiful little red. Might need to warm it up just a hair. Maybe. Oh, you know how we'll warm it up? Let's see what it looks like. Let's do an experiment. This is the Nickel Azo Yellow. This can be strong. We're just going to mix a little bit in with this. Now, this Nickel Azo Yellow is in our greens, so this can actually help our red look a little bit more cohesive to our overall painting. And it's kind of neutralizing our red. We're taking a cooler red, that quin red, or it's either quin red or quin rose. I apologize because I didn't write it down. My little swatch, this is my plein air set. My little swatch just wasn't big enough. All I had room for was like the pigment numbers. Now, if I would have thought about it at the time, I would have written them on the back, but I didn't. So I have lived and learned. All right, hopefully that is going to be plenty of red. And again, I'm going to take a touch of that Nickel Azo Yellow. Okay. So there's our base color. This is like our medium value. We're going to mix up some shadows. You know, we need colors for shadows. But to start with, on both her hat and her jacket, this is what we're going to use. Now for the hat, on the sides of her hat, on the brim, I'm wetting the entire hat. But the sides of the hat, like these parts, there's a lot of water there. I'm just picking up a little bit of the water I put down. That last bit put too much. Okay, so this part and this part, are going to be lighter. Yes, yes, I am. Yes, I am. Oh. I know that was not said. If anybody is watching and sees that was not said with any malice. That was absolutely not. All right, let's just put in the red of her hat. I'm working straight down. Now I'm going to wipe on my brush, get some of that off. I'm just bringing very light values out here. I'm adjusting the hat ever so slightly because where my masking was, I've got this like weird spot right here. And it'll be fine. And there we go. Okay. That red is going to bleed into the outsides. I can do some lifting, or you know what? I can use some bleed-proof white to deal with my highlights. Either way, you know what I have to say. It's going to be fine. All right. I'm going to wet her jacket. Still trying to decide what I'm going to use for like the color of her hands. You really don't see. There's like no detail. But I need to do like her legs because I don't know where she is. Maybe she's wearing a dress. I don't know where she is. But here in April, you're not wearing shorts. Not usually. Say she's probably, maybe she's got her Easter dress under there. And she saw that puddle and she went off to splash. Because everybody knows splashing's fun. Okay. Now we're just going to take our red and drop that in. This is going to dry lighter because it's being painted wet into wet. Yeah, it must be a late April storm if it were here, because otherwise it would be snow. It snowed last night. We woke up to fresh snow on the ground, about 1.5 inches or so. I can barely see my line for like at the waistband. I'm going to need this to dry before I can come back in. But there's other places we can be hopping around while this is drying. Oh my gosh, my hands want to be shaky. I'm just tapping right here. This is like the under part of her hood. That may spread, but it's fine. I don't know that you could really do shorts. I mean, maybe if you don't go outside, shorts and t-shirts year round here. I don't think so. Sometimes January gets to be like, with wind chills and stuff. I mean, we've hit not too much this January. It was very mild. But the past couple years, I mean, it has been like -35. That's Fahrenheit. With our wind chills and stuff, it's been cold. Remember I said I was going to put the red line for her boot here. Let's go ahead and drop that in. There we go. Which that will make more sense when we paint that part. Now I need a darker value. I'm going to take a little bit of my neutral tint. Let's just see what I get. I want like almost like a maroon. Because I want to paint like this is part of inside her hood. Yeah, it's still wet. That's gonna wanna travel. We're gonna put a stop to that. I'm gonna dab that up right there. Which is fine, because we don't mind if this part of her hood gets a little lighter. Just bringing the correct red back. I'll touch that up after. It needs to be drier. I'm trying to work so I can get this all done today. We'll see. I mean, I'm going to finish it. I just don't know. I just know how close to 5 we're going to finish it. Hopefully not too long. All right, for her hands and her legs. I'm just going to, I'm going to play with color for a moment, and if it works and I like it, I will let you know what that color is. So far, you've seen me put down buff titanium and put in a touch of the red that we're already using. And now to warm that up, I'm just grabbing a tiny bit of our nickel azo yellow. I'm going to blend that in so that we can get more of like a peach. And there we go. So it's a yellow we've already used in our painting. It's the red we've already used in our painting. I am just bringing in some buff titanium. Okay. And that's what I'm going to use for her hands. And that's wanting to bleed right up into the coat. It was still wet right there. There we go. That's fine, but we're going to use that on her legs as well. And this is dry enough now that I can get the rest of this off. I just want to be careful because that red above it is wet. There's the one. There's the other. I just painted my hand. I'm going to make sure. All right, I lost a little bit of my line, so I just want to remind myself that here, this is the edge of her boot, and she has a red stripe at the top. Right, same with this. And then we had where our shadow. See, if I look here, the lines here were for where the shadow was. So, right, because her raincoat, this is casting a shadow. And here, this, like, we have foreshortening. This knee is bent and coming at us. So we're actually seeing the shadow is going to kind of like be up in here. Like that. So, my colors separating there. Mix that, and I'm going to very much lighten this up. And I paint in her legs. Still quite dark right there. It wasn't really snowy here this winter. As far as winters go, I didn't think so anyways. I'm going to need to put some shadows on her legs, but I'll let that dry first. Okay, let's work on, I need to mist my color. I'm going to move this away so I don't mist my painting as I dampen this paint back up. All right, so again, paint in her, it's a part of her hood. It's like kind of sticking up. And then we're going to have, let's just put a line. Okay, let's just work with a line here. Her hood here. There's a little bit of shadow on her jacket, but now I'm going to rinse my brush out. I'm going to dry my brush off. And then I'm just going to soften that edge. And then that creates that shadow from under her hood. Oh yeah, you could do bright color tights. Absolutely. If that didn't work out, you could certainly put tights on her. Right? She's got her little blue boots. You could maybe put her in some blue tights. It would definitely go with the rest of the painting. You can put her in whatever color you want. You can dress her however you want. Okay, on our jacket, we are going to build up our shadows here. We're going to have shadow. My brush is dry. Brush is dry or my paint's dry. It's not flowing, so there we go. She's gonna have shadow under here. And we're gonna build up some kind of wrinkles in her sleeve. There's definitely going to be shadow here. I don't know, Wildflower. As kids, we went out and played in some storms when it was pretty cold. Now the lines that you had on that line art, they kind of outlined where you were going to put the folds, the wrinkles that are in her jacket to help give it some shape. Don't you love making up stories? I'm watching the comments. I love making up stories for the paintings. Like, why is she out there like this? Do her parents know she's out there? She might have snuck off. There we go. Bring some folds into this side here. That's not the direction I wanted to go with that one, but that's okay. We can make it work. And remember, I just pulled neutral tint up into that, so if I need to darken it up or make more, I certainly can. All right, while this is kind of a little faded out, I'm going to pull a little bit down. I'm going to soften these, this shadow here on the bottom part, I'm going to soften this up some. We're just kind of, right? She's little. She doesn't necessarily have defined hips or anything yet, but we are going to still, she's jumping. Her little bum's probably pushing her jacket out a little bit. There we go. Now she's starting to take shape. Oh, Joseph's cats are taking over. All right, so here we got to get some shadow. We'll have to darken the other part up a little bit, and that'll be fine. We're just gonna start to make this hood take some shape. Lots of neutral tint came off on that one. A little bit more shadow under her hood. Hi, Delvin Soul. Lighten this back up just a little bit. So I get kind of that same value I had before. This was much darker. Building up a little bit of that shadow underneath. She needs hair. We need to connect that hat. Make this right here along like the waistband. A little bit darker. I'm just kind of dabbing in a line so that it's like that waistband, like that has elastic. There we go. Just darkening a few shadows. Like in the crease of her arm would definitely be darker. Okay, let's work on her hat. First off, we're gonna get the brim of her hat in here. Right, and make that take some shape. And right here, it's our like darkest shadow on the hat itself. Thanks, Rob. Okay, I'm going to take this lighter red because I want to do another layer here. Like I want the top of her hat to be the lightest value. So we're going to kind of bring that back around. And then again, we're going to darken this up. And that's going to leave our edges lighter by putting another layer on there. Again, we can always lighten it, highlight it if we want to with the bleed proof white. I'm going to take this really nice and dark. Right, had our neutral tint mixed in. I need to let that dry some more. I'm not liking this hard line I'm getting, so just I washed my brush and then there we go. Dried it off so that there wasn't a lot of water that was going to flood into that space. Okay, now I need to let this dry so I can come back and put some more on, but let's just give her some some hair. We're going to make this really simple. We're just going to grab, let's see. That's a PR 101. I think that's a little too, let's add a little umber. This is raw umber. And a little transparent red oxide. There we go. We're just going to give her brown hair. Maybe she has a wisp or two that stick out. There we go. Let's bring that up so you guys can get a closer look. And I will come back with, let's grab maybe some of the neutral tint. I want to make sure I'm using the neutral tint because, you know, we've already used that. But I want to make sure there's not too much water on my brush. And right here where her hair is under her, where it touches her hat, I'm just going to come back with that neutral tint right at the very top. Because of course that hat is definitely putting some shadow. Maybe some of this hair we can see popping out from her hood, but it looks like it's pretty well tucked in there. All right. I just grabbed that neutral tint. I'm bringing it into what we already did for her skin color. Let's see if we can't paint the shadow in that. Now again, if you decided she was wearing tights and you put on if you painted them blue or whatever color, you would just make it darker in whatever color you chose. And this is where her knee is. I need to lift right there out. There we go. Right, so we have some foreshadowing. This right here is supposed to be where her calf. I'm really not liking it. I think I might have preferred it if I just painted her legs blue. I actually need to lay this flat. I don't want that color to run down. I want it to stay setting where I put it. And I certainly want a soft transition on this leg. So, clean brush, wipe it off, and just come in and paint over that edge. And that will soften your shadow. Okay, let's get a little bit of this shadow up here on her hand. Again, it was just neutral tint. I think I touched this umber. Okay. Now you can take the time and darken up any bits. Play with those shadows, whatever you would like, as much as you would like. But in the interest of time, I'm just, again, taking a little bit darker value right here at the under part of where her hood is. Just kind of separating that space a little bit more. And we're going to put a little bit more shadow. This would be like under her elbow. A little bit more down this side. A little bit more in here. A little bit more here. Just to really darken this up. Now, I'm just going to soften the edge of this. A little bit more in. There we go. There we go. All right, ready to do some boots? While we have the red, let's go ahead and paint in the red stripes. Because if we get our red stripes a little bit wider than we want them, not a big deal. Right? It's not a big deal because our blue is going to be darker and would certainly be able to cover them up. So we've got one there. I'm just picturing this red stripe like goes right around the base of her boot. Like it would go like that. We need to do the red up at the top. We are almost done. Thanks for sticking with me. If you are still here watching with me, please hit that thumbs up button. Definitely helps when you hit the like button. Yeah, see, that one just got a little thicker. It's fine. I'll be able to come back over that with my dark blue. All right, let's get that mixed up. And if you're enjoying this, definitely consider subscribing to the channel. Okay, coming back, flipping this back around, because we're going to do our green grasses for our details in a minute. And we definitely want the blue. I'm just going to mix it down here. This has some neutral tint, whatever else was down here, it doesn't matter. We're going to be putting more in it anyways. So this is PB27. Again, like I said, you can mix up. It's kind of like when we did our sky. Whatever colors we use, like up there. We just want a nice dark blue, some neutral tint in this. Neutralizes that nicely, and we get a nice blue for her boots. There's a nice dark blue, and that is going to allow our little white polka dots that we're going to put on her little rain boots to really show up. Welcome back, Tara. If you're not aware, Tara and Joseph are our channel moderators. They both have channels here on YouTube. They are linked in the description below. If you haven't seen their channels, I definitely encourage you to check them out. All right, so her boot. And now I can really work, like this was a little wonky. Oh, I'm going to work on fixing her rain boot here as I paint this in. I went a little further than I needed to, but it's fine. Just that one little stroke got away from me. And I'm going to paint the toe is down here. So we're going to put a little bit of blue down there. Like that's the toe of her boot. There we go. Underneath here, I'm going to paint dark. We're going to paint the bottoms on like they're black. And then this one too, this got a little narrow. Like her boot's not going to get that narrow. I understand she's like bending her leg. But her boot is not going to look that skinny right there where her ankle is. So we're just going to do a little touch up. There we go. And there's a blue line. There is a blue line at the top. Right? Okay. The sole of her boot, I'm just going to do in neutral tint. We've already used it in plenty of places, and it will work with what we see reflecting in the water. And I'm leaving just a little white space there in between. Again, if you don't have that, don't worry. You could always come back with bleed proof white. And that's what we're going to be doing in just a moment. Right now I'm letting her boots dry. So I'm going to do the polka dots on her boots last. Because remember, it's only bleed proof if the underlayer is dry. There we go. And so here's her little, right, just the reflection of that one. Here's her foot. So this is probably like the toe part of the boot that's hitting that water right there. While I have this nice dark on my brush though, why don't we go ahead and add a few more dark lines to our water. We need to give our reflections a little bit more dark. This is not flowing well. I need to tiny bit more water. We're not going to worry about the reflection coming through. It would come through where the boot is, so I'm just going to kind of pull that along. If you want your water to really look wet and reflective, you can't be afraid to add those darks in. You have to add in your darks. Right? I say it all the time. Bob Ross always said, you can't have light without the dark. It's got to be there. I think we get so afraid to put in those darks sometimes, but I encourage you, just experiment. Like I've said, turn on your phone. Look at your painting through your phone, through the camera on your phone. And that will really help you get a better perspective. It kind of disconnects you to what you're seeing. When you're just looking at your painting here, I'm always looking up at my monitor to see, you know, how it looks. If I like what I've done. I'm adding some extras maybe that aren't on the line work. And if you're just joining us, if you want this line art and you want to paint along, I do hope if you paint this that you will share it on social media and tag me. We do have an art group on Facebook. It's free to join. I definitely invite you to come join us over there. This is really going to pop when we get the white, some of our white highlights in here. And that is exploring art. Hopefully one of the mods can kind of drop that in the chat. It is Facebook. I think it's groups/exploring art. Right? Because that's what I do here on this channel. I am always exploring. There we go. All right. Let's grab our bleed proof white. Let's get some highlights here. See what we can do. Okay, so I just have my Dr. Paige Martin's bleed proof white. Once again, I'm just going to kind of turn my palette so that you guys can see it. I had to move the other stuff that I have over here because I tried to stay nice and close up for you today. All right. I'm going to put some of that right there on my palette. If you don't have Dr. Paige Martin's bleed proof white gouache is fine. You can use white gouache. All right, let's add in a few highlights to our water. Again, I'm going to take these right over my reflection. Don't be afraid to add your lights and add your darks. I just realized the other thing we didn't do is we didn't put in some details in our grasses, and that is super easy. It's going to happen in our foreground. You see, if you get one that's a little dark, just rub over it with your finger, but look at how much better. Okay. For here, I'm going to grab just a touch of that red. All right, this is just going to give me really light. And I'm just going to put a little bit of highlight here. Maybe a touch. I don't know. It might not be. Rinse that out. Just grabbing the same red that I've been using the whole time. There we go. And just coming back on top. And just puts a little bit of highlight and some more shape on her hat. Okay. All right. So for our foreground, let's finish this off. We're just going to take, I'm just grabbing some of these greens that we already had. It's going to be just a mixture, right? A mixture of values here. We had our sap green. Grabbing that nickel as a yellow and just making some lighter values there. Okay. And of course we have some darker values here. Touch of that. That was just my neutral tint. Just to get a little bit darker value. Okay. I think you guys are going to love the Mayflowers page. I already have that one designed. All right, let's start off some of these darks. We're just going to pull up some grass along the edge of our, right where our puddle is. I'm going to put a little bit of shadow in here. And we're going to pull up some grasses here. Pulling some up. I'm going to grab our sap green. Bring some of that into both of these as well. Oh, look at that. I saved it. I almost dropped it right in the puddle. Come over here too. I've got sap green on my brush right now. Just putting some dark, right? If there's a puddle, it has to be set down, right? Set down in. So we want to bring a little bit of shadow here. So that we can set that puddle down into the land a little bit. And I'm just going to pull up some grass. Just bring, this is going to bring this closer to us. And it's going to help push everything else back further. We're going to do a few. We don't need to do the whole thing. We just need some suggestions here, right? Through these areas. I can pull right up over where the water is. And we're just going to pull some here and there. We want the suggestion that we can see these little blades of grass. Remember this area? I drop that water. Just take some of this dark mixture. We're just going to kind of pull it across in here. Just like that. That's gone. Just going to kind of glaze it over. Glaze in a little bit more shadow here. There we go. All fixed. Told you we would fix it later. A few more blades of grass, especially right here at our foreground. Right? We're just going to pull up. Hi, Berlina. Yeah, I'm glad you got to see part of it. If you've joined late and you're like, I really would love to paint that, the line art is available. If you're a channel member, I did a post here on YouTube where you'll be able to find it. But it's also over on Patreon. And all members of Patreon are able to download this. There is a link in the description. I don't know if I have a link directly to the Patreon post where you can find it. But if you go to patreon.com/ClarkFineArt, you will see the post. If you're seeing a fee for the line art, all members on Patreon can download this for free. So even the free members, okay? So some people might not want to even be a free member, and that's fine. You do you. But you can get it for free. And if you share this on social media, remember on Instagram, if you don't follow me yet, I am at Clark_Fine Art. That underscore is important because if you don't have the underscore, it's the only place where I'm different. But if you don't have that underscore, you're going to get Christopher Clark's art gallery in California. And that is definitely not me. All right. Look at how much the difference it makes. Just putting the little suggestions of our grasses in kind of along the lines of our, let's just do a little, ooh, I am going to cover my painting, and I am going to cover my puddle because I just want a few splatters in this area to add texture to our grass. Ooh, I'm going to do some in the lighter also. There we go. Now, let's not forget this part. And if there are any that you see that you don't like maybe that one's a little too dark, you can either tap it out or just take your brush, pretty much dried. There we go. All right. And you can always like pull through some also. What do you guys think? I'm liking it. I think we're pretty much done. I think the only thing left for this one is to take the tape off and see how it looks. Okay, too much paint on my brush. There we go. All better. I just think that really pulls it forward. We can put a few little marks out here. I didn't like that one. There we go. It never happened. All right, let's get this out of the way. I've been signing all of these, so I'm going to go ahead and sign it. It's calendar. You don't have to sign them. Is this dry? Let me just give it a dry where I was doing that splatter. I'm going to mute you while I do that. If anybody has any last minute questions or comments, go ahead and drop them in the live chat now. Thank you. Okay, I already know what May is going to be. For those of you who are on Discord, like if you're a channel member, again, I've said it before, if you're a channel member or a patron and you are not on Discord yet, I strongly encourage you to join us over there because there's so much behind the scenes and access to me that you get by being over there. And it's super easy to join. Discord is free. And I will share some behind the scenes. I'll give you a sneak peek of what is coming for next month's. And since this is April, let's see, we want Thursdays. So we will paint it on Thursday the 24th. Yep, Thursday the 24th. That's when we will paint May's. So that's when May's calendar will be. So if you're following along with the calendars, look at that edge. Isn't that excellent? I love when you get that nice clean edge. And you saw me, I kind of heated up my tape too. Helps it peel off nice and easy. I'm loving this one. Oh, I like this one so much better than March. I will, as always, I will scan this in and I will post it for you over on Discord so you can have a look at it. I will also update the thumbnail. So if you're watching on the replay, you knew what I was going to paint just by looking at the thumbnail, because before that, it was just line art that you saw on the thumbnail. So let's take a look. Like, how did we get here? I started with a few photos that I created by putting something into the Magic Media on Canva. And I knew I wanted a child splashing in a puddle. And then I kind of described my scene. And so this was one that gave me. I didn't like the raincoat. I really liked the coat and the hat. So that's what we went with. But I loved this sky. So that sky was our inspiration for the sky. And then I said, you know what? No, I need trees. That one didn't have trees. And of course, you know I need trees. So we got this one with some trees in it. And I thought, oh, I like this little girl. I also put the prompt in to have a rain hat and raincoat. So that's how we got this. But I didn't like the little girl right in the middle of our painting. That is not where we're going to want it. And I also liked this puddle. Look at the puddle. I liked this puddle so much better. So I took this girl. I took the puddle in the sky from one. I took this area from another. I took the girl. I flipped it. Now I had the feet the right way for the puddle that I wanted. So you can play and create your own reference photos. And then from there, I just sketched it out and gave you guys the line art. And here we are. I really hope you enjoyed this. I could go back, I could continue to darken up some of our wrinkles, and that would be great too. You really can go. Oh, we didn't do our dots. We didn't do our dots on our boots. We're not done yet. Hold on. This will not take long. I'm just grabbing my bleed proof white. We need to do the polka dots on her boots. I'm just kind of working like an in-between pattern. Probably more than I need. Oh, I like the bigger dots. Ah, now I have bigger dots. Am I going to wish I didn't put dots? I don't know. If you don't like the polka dots, don't put them on. Right? It's that simple. She has some polka dot rainbows, which means I also need some polka dots here in my water because it's a reflection of her boot. I probably should have put pencil dots where I wanted the dots to be and then come back over them. But that's okay. She's got some polka dotted rain boots. There we go. All right, now we've got the polka dots. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, link for all the supplies are in the description. This calendar by Lightwish is actually on sale right now. Amazon has their spring sale going on. It's linked in the description. It's like $11 to get this calendar. And you can catch up and paint along with me for the rest of the year. We're going to be doing one every single month. I am trying to get them out to you during the month prior so you can enjoy the scene. Of course, I was sick and down with the flu, so March was late coming out, but here we are with April before April gets here. I love this one. I think it's fun and playful. I hope you do too. If you paint it, please tag me because I would love to see your work. Again, on Instagram, Clark, it's at Clark_fine_art. On Facebook, I am at Clark Fine Art. And I can't wait to see what you paint. And of course, if you're a channel member or a patron, drop it in the Discord because I want to see if you're painting this one. I hope you had fun. I sure did. Thanks for sticking with me late. Until next time, my friends, keep creating, and I will see you in a video real soon. Bye, guys.